Okay, I'm doing a blog today. This one is called Coming Home and Sharing My Journey Around Food Sensitivity Testing. After a 28-hour long series of plane trips, I am back home and tucked into my wonderful abode. What a spectacular trip this one was, one for the memory books. Thank you, Julia Tyndall, for organizing it all. I have loved all of the very memorable trips I have done with her, and she knows how to put it all together and must have the greatest weather angel ever. We saw Mount Cook and hiked the trails around to its lakes on a perfectly clear day, evidently a very rare event. And I saw Milford Sound in a heavy rain and windstorm, making hundreds of waterfalls come pouring off the cliffs and the wind carrying the water back up into the sky before it even touched the ocean. A spectacular view that I will remember forever. The sounds of the winds through the fjord and the falling waterfalls are one of those unique sounds I will treasure in my mind forever. There are special moments and places, and this was one of them. Financially, it was a total stretch, and there were brief times that I questioned whether I should go. It took my budget down to nothing, and I worried about the automatic bills that were coming out while I was gone those 2 weeks. But it was worth it. After all, I am not getting any younger, and the amazing hikes that we had were so memorable, and I know something divine was at work in this process. The censure for me was that I was going to be in New Zealand when this amazing astrology shifted from Pluto and Capricorn into Pluto and Aquarius, with the sun also going into Aquarius. An extremely rare moment to be in such an extremely rare place. I felt it was going to set the tone for my cycle of Pluto in opposition to my sun for the next 20 years. In astrocartography, setting yourself in interesting places as the solar chart comes around can be extremely significant. I did this a few times, and one in particular was when I needed to finish up some huge details in my tarot book, and my mind needed to be in a place that gave me a Virgo ascendant for my solar return. So the only place I had that in the US was in Eureka, California. I had no money, so I drove to Eureka from Salt Lake City and stayed in the cheapest hotel that was there and just worked on the book. And it worked. Not only did I do the hardest parts of my book, but I also got a taste of what was going to come my way and eventually bring me to this same area, my new husband, and a lifestyle that was going to save my life in more ways than one. This moment, January 20th, while not a setting for the begin, while was a setting was not setting for the beginning of my solar return, which was in August, I felt was even more important on many levels. Once again, broke, financially strapped after Christmas and asked to trust the universe once again, I leaped and realized that the angels were not wrong. This life often feels as a wild series of moments when I am repeatedly asked to leap off of cliffs and trust. At 63 years old, I am getting quite good at it, but each time it has those moments where the impossible is the doorway to something powerful, transformational, and wonderful. Add to that, I did a 96 food sensitivity test on Christmas Eve because I had not been feeling well. I kept coughing when I ate, and my genetics have an alpha-1 antitrypsin gene, which causes COPD and liver cancer. My grandmother died of all of those. My mother has COPD emphysema. She never smoked. And my sister has COPD as well. I have watched them coughing through the years, but I had managed to get by unscathed. But in the last year, I felt an odd sensation in my lungs when coughing, and I am smart enough to know that while my diet is ridiculously clean and organic, genes can get triggered, and I felt I was doing something wrong. So I called my OBGYN, who was great at all the testing of odd things, and explained my problem, and she put me on some lung herbs while I put myself before that on mullein tincture from Herb Farm, my favorite company, started by an Osho follower from Pune, and began to feel better. But I knew that I needed to do a food sensitivity test. The results were not surprising, as I did a Vega machine test for this same thing when I was in my 20s, and the results mirrored many of those older results. The bad news: I can't do any dairy. Nothing. No yogurt, no milk, cream, goat's milk, sheep's milk, or any cheeses. Super bummer. I have one of the celiac genes, which makes me sensitive to gluten and wheat. I tried to do only organic, non-GMO wheat, but I came back reacting to all gluten. Ugh. Then there were the surprises. We have done a lot of tomatoes in our garden and did spaghetti, sauces, and canning. So, of course, even though I never touch a commercial tomato, I can't do tomatoes. Ugh. Then there were some surprises: green beans and papaya. Admittedly, I love green beans, but those are out. In fact, all regular beans were also out. No black beans, pinto beans, lima beans, navy beans, etc. You get the idea. I love papaya with a lime, but that was also out. Avocados are out, and every type and part of an egg. Going on this trip, you can imagine that my options were limited at hotel breakfasts. Most breakfasts are, guess what? Bread, eggs, and dairy. This pretty much limited me to cornflakes and my own almond milk from the grocery store that I dragged around with me. Dinners were also complicated. So much is made with butter, wheat, cheese, and desserts are often made with eggs, butter, and dairy. So desserts were out. I brought with me those Kind bars with the dark chocolate. They have no dairy in them, thank the stars, but good food choices were limited. Even Chinese food is tricky because soy sauce is made with wheat, so I had to bring my own small packets of teriyaki sauce, and I tried to not be the difficult patron. I looked for things on the menu that might fit the bill, but there were those moments that in Mexican food I would ask for the pulled pork bowl with no sour cream, no cheese, no tomatoes, and no beans. What that leaves is the pork, lettuce, cucumber, jalapenos, and that was about it. Thai food was a bit easier because I could do all the curries and the rice noodles. But the truth was, the moment I started, I was feeling better. And as time progressed, I was coughing less and less. So between the hiking and the diet changes, I lost 13 pounds in 2 weeks. That is a good thing. So I'm even more motivated to keep going. These shifts in the astrology are big, and I find that catching these powerful waves of change at the beginning might alleviate problems down the road. I share all this with everyone because even when we think we are doing the right thing and are eating organically, even from our own gardens, we occasionally have to make larger corrections. I'm clearly on the road to a better eating lifestyle. Much of this was not a surprise because of the testing when I was in my 20s. At this time, I was a vegan for 2 years and cleared up a lot of health problems. I was vegetarian after that for another 8 to 10 years, and that again helped me balance out issues I was having at the time. Now, once again, my genetic weaknesses surface, and I am called once again to make the necessary shifts, and it is a good thing. I hope that this can help others find paths to health and well-being. For information's sake, the test I did was the U.S. Biotech Laboratories 96 General Food Panel, IgG4, out of Shoreline, Washington. Thanks, everyone.